2, 1, go.
Welcome to Goa's Art and Literary. Can you start again, please?
Yeah.
Welcome to Goa's Art and Literary Festival 2014. I'm Rebecca Pereira, and joining me today is a very special guest. She's a renowned lecturer in Australia and. Start again.
You can continue that she's a renowned lecturer in Australia.
Okay. She's a
lecturer in
Okay.
Australia.
Take it from the start? Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to Goa's Art and Literary Festival 2014. I'm Rebecca Pereira, and joining me today is a very special guest. She's not only a renowned lecturer in Australia, but also a publisher of literature and translation. Welcome, Miss. Welcome, Miss. Should I say Miss or Doctor? Doctor. Welcome, Dr. Mridula Sinha.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for being here.
I'm very pleased to be here.
Could you tell us more about your project that you're doing here in Goa?
Sure. I'm very pleased to be at the Goa Arts and Literature Festival, and the project that I'm doing is called Literary Commons, Writing Australia, India in the Asian Century in Indigenous, Multilingual and Dalit tongues. What this means precisely is establishing connections between Australia and India in terms of their indigenous populations. In the last 30 years, there has been a huge literary renaissance in Indigenous Australian literature and also in Dalit literature in India. So this is a kind of, this project is a dialogue which brings together these disparate voices from two countries which have a lot of things in common.
All right, that sounds very interesting.
Thank you.
So you live in Australia. Do you have a large fan following there?
No, not at all. I'm just a university teacher, so I have my students. What I'm really trying to do is establishing these writer-to-writer connections so as to create a mutual understanding about the diversity and complexity about these two nations. So as part of this project, I brought 12 Indigenous Australian writers to different literary festivals in India. So the first set of writers went to the Bangalore Literature Festival, the second set of writers has come to the Goa Literature Festival, Arts and Literary Festival, and the third set of writers will go to the APJ Kolkata and the Jaipur Literature Festival.
So you have traveled to many countries, is that right?
A few, yes.
Okay, so how do these cultures influence the way you write and the way you present your literature?
I am not a creative writer myself at all. I teach a lot of literature that is from different countries. My specialization is in post-colonial and diasporic literatures. So whenever I travel to the different countries around the world, and more my focus is Asia now, I'm really interested in looking at diverse literary cultures in Asia. My interest has gone deeper and deeper into the literatures of those countries in their own languages. And the reason this has happened is because of the example of Indian literature. Indian literature in English is famous the world over, but Indian literature in the regional languages does not have that kind of exposure around the world, in spite of the fact that these literatures are extremely vibrant in their own languages, and some of them have 2,000-year-old histories. We have 6 classical languages in our country, and it is really a matter of great shame that these literatures have not found an audience in other different countries. So because of that, when I travel, I also look for the literatures in the original languages of the countries that I'm traveling in.
All right. So what inspired you to bring these two countries together, India and Australia, and share the different cultures and language?
When I went to Australia 6 years ago, I was struck by the fact that I knew very little about Indigenous Australian literatures, and it was a matter of great surprise to me to find that there were 600 Indigenous languages in Australia at one point of time, and now because of the colonial policies, because of the way in which Indigenous people have been discriminated against, these languages had dwindled down only to about 20 languages in which people can speak fluently. And then I found that a huge contrast to the state of India, where we have so many different languages, a comparable number of languages, and literatures in these languages are thriving. So that was one point of comparison in which India seemed to be doing the preservation of languages, even though many of them are dying out, preservation of languages very well. But on the other hand, Indigenous literature seems to have reached a kind of maturity and complexity and vibrancy, which I found very exciting. And I found that a contrast to Dalit writing in India, which is still at the consciousness raising level, which is still at the level of life stories and autobiographies which tell about the plight of the Dalit and tribes in India. So I wanted this exchange, on the one hand for Australia to learn from the Indian examples about languages, and on the other hand for Indian Dalit writing to learn from how indigenous writing has crossed all these genres: poetry, prose, romance, comedy, paranormal fiction, all of the speculative fiction, children's writing. So I wanted this kind of coming together of these two literatures in order to see what comes out of it, really, because both are exciting fields.
Yes, they are. So how is Goa treating you?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
It's my first time in Goa, and you know, like most ignorant mainland Indian people, I did not have an understanding of how complex and deep-rooted the history and traditions, and how globalized really Goa has been for so many centuries. So that for me has been an eye-opener.
Well, I'm glad Goa's treating you well.
Thank you.
So, is this your first time at the Art and Literary Festival?
Yes, it is.
And how is that for you? Is this experience good?
The most exciting thing for me has been the opportunity to come into contact with indigenous writers from Goa. This morning we had an extremely special session, which was a closed session. It was not a session open to the general public of the festival. It was a closed session between the indigenous writers that I brought from Australia and indigenous students from Goa who are starting to write and express their identity, and the kind of dialogue which emerged from that. So that has been wonderful for me.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I wish you a lovely stay here in Goa.
Thank you. All the best to you. I also wanted to add that the other great thing that I found here was the B.R. Ambedkar lecture, which has been inaugurated today. It's the first in the series, and this is a great sign of Goa Arts and Literature Festival being at the forefront, and I'm looking forward to the second one tomorrow, also the B.R. Ambedkar lecture.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take it again.
You'll have to conclude that. Yeah,
Okay.
you have to conclude by saying, so that was,
Okay, so
yeah.
so should I say like that was an interesting conversation, or how do I?
But that's all we have right now. Keep watching
That's all we have from Ms. Mridula, Dr. Mridula, on the indigenous,
On the literary commons.
on the literary commons. Okay.
Okay.
And we have many more sessions. Stay tuned.
Okay.
more interviews.
Many more interviews.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all we have about Dr. Mridula for today. Stay tuned for more interviews. Thank you.